Hey guys, I'm Lauren from Creative Mom Boss, and we are here today to talk about planning for 2019. So I'm really excited to do another one of these Facebook Lives. I always love interacting with people and getting people's feedback and hearing your questions and everything. I'm sorry I'm looking a little rough today, but I'll get into a little bit more about that later. We have had like 15 inches of snow on the ground in my town the past week, and that's probably not a lot for some of you, but I live in North Carolina where it definitely is a lot. So it has been a rough week gearing up towards Christmas, and this is actually the last week that I was filling Etsy orders too. So it's been a wild ride. But I want to go ahead and get started on the 2019 planning because I'm excited to talk about that, and I know that's why you guys are here, and I don't want to waste your time. So if you're joining live, welcome, and I'd love for you to say hey or introduce yourself. But if you're watching a replay, hi also, and thanks for joining. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I love to plan out my year. I am like super type A goal setter planner. So I think that writing lists and planning out my year is really fun. I know that that's not true for everybody, but it's really important so that you know like where you're going. How do you know if you've achieved what you wanted to set out to achieve if you don't make those goals and set those goals for yourself? So I think it's a really important thing with your business, and I also think it helps you to get organized with the goals that you want to achieve so that you're not just sort of like floundering along and doing things haphazardly. So the first thing I want to say is that I think it's really important that you write down your goals. And I have a workbook that I've linked at the top of the Facebook Live in the little description area, but you can print that out if you want. And it's like a PDF that you can fill in. So I think it's really important that you write down those goals though, instead of just like picturing them in your head or sort of, randomly thinking, oh, it'd be nice if I could do X, Y, and Z, but to really have a designated time that you say, okay, I'm gonna plan out my year, and I actually would really like for you to focus on the first 6 months at a time, because especially if you're new in business, I think it can be a little overwhelming to plan out 12 months. And I also think that you don't necessarily know like where your business is going to be in 12 months. I think for me with Etsy, the growth is not necessarily linear. It's like there will be these big jumps. And so you could sit here right now in December of 2018 and say, I want to achieve this many sales by next December, but then 6 months from now, your shop could have like exploded and it's totally irrelevant goal. So I think it's good to work sort of in 6-month chunks so that you can reevaluate. And there's also, I think it's hard to set long-term goals a lot of times because your priorities can shift and things in your actual life outside of working can change. And so I know for me, being type A, I like to make sure that I'm checking off those little boxes of goals that I've set. And I don't like it when I look back on my goals and I say, well, I didn't do this one, but it was because I didn't want to, or that became not a priority in my life, or something that wasn't important to me anymore. So if you're not quite as type A as me, that might not be as important to you, but so I think, so when you're setting out your goals, actually, I wanted to show you guys first. Okay, I'm like super nerding out here, so don't mind me. But these are some planners that I really like. And like I said, I do have the workbook that's attached that's printable, but this is more like a little bit harder copy. This one I talked about it is the Michael Hyatt Full Focus Planner. I talked about it in my gifts for Etsy shop owners. And this is actually my first year using this one, but I love it. I actually just bought it recently. So it talks about like, I don't know if you can, okay. This is like working in a mirror. It's hard for me to show you guys, but it has like step by step. So it will say like my biggest accomplishments from the last week, my after action review, what I did last week, how complete I am on a certain task, major events and deadlines, things. This is like a type A person's dream. So it is really good, and it's highly recommended by a bunch of business people that I follow that I really like. So, so that's that one. Oh my gosh, seriously. This one is a bullet journal. You can see that my lovely 3-year-old wrote on it. But I, for a long time, like years and years and years, and this is like a little bit cheaper solution and easier, but this is how I do it. This is my goal setting: health and fitness, business goals, house goals, lifestyle goals, whatever. And I'm not like artsy. So people do all kinds of crazy things with their bullet journals and make them beautiful. I am not really that person. So, although I did try for a minute there to get nice colored boxes, but, so that is a really easy one, a really easy way of doing it, and, a little bit cheaper. I got that on Amazon. And then this one, this is actually a fitness journal. It's called Commit 30. But I thought it was relevant because it's basically a 30-day goal setting journal, and it is like for fitness specifically. So there's things like drinking water and meal prepping and stuff. But I think you could use it for business, and it would be really good because they have things like this where you set out your goals for the month. And then you like mark off the little boxes if you achieve them. And then you have like a big goal and then different little steps. So that one's called Commit 30. I also think it's neat because this is like a company and they show pictures. It's like a small business and they show pictures of them working out of their garage and filling orders and stuff, which I can relate. So I like to support them. So those are my 3 like favorite journal things. This year I'm going to go with a Michael Hyatt one, although my husband and I did do our goal setting in the bullet journal because that's what we've been using for years. So my like personal individual goals are in that one. But so I just wanted to share those with you, and I can link those in the comments. It's really hard for me to see the comments while I'm doing these Facebook Lives. For some reason, I don't see them well. So if you guys are commenting and I'm not responding, I'll respond later. I'm sorry about that. So I wanted to kind of go over how I goal set and what like the steps that I go through to do that and to be able to set realistic goals for my business. You guys may have heard of SMART goals. This is kind of like an old thing that, I mean, it's been around for a while, but so basically SMART is the acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So it's sort of a guideline of how you can set goals that are better goals for you to be able to achieve. So for example, specific could be like a number goal. So when I'm setting goals for the year, I like to have different categories sort of that I'm setting, especially business goals. So for instance, your major goal, you should have like 1 or 2 major goals, and then break them down into smaller things that you can work on monthly or smaller things that you want to achieve monthly. But the major goals could be like the number of sales or the revenue goal, or having enough revenue in your shop to be able to quit your full-time job. That would be a big goal. But something that's like a big sort of life-changing big goal. But it's good to only have a couple of those to focus on. It's really hard if you say, I want to make $50,000 this year and quit my full-time job. I also want to have 25,000 Instagram followers, and I want to start a blog and develop a new product line. You're like going in so many different directions. It's going to be really hard to do that. Those are also really broad goals. But so I think it's good to have 1 or 2 major goals. I usually try and set a revenue goal, a sales goal, and then something that is not, that's more like in my control. So I can do the best that I can revenue-wise, like to get more sales on Etsy, and I can learn new things and whatever, but it's not 100% in your control. So I like to set a goal like I'm going to do 5 new listings a week or whatever. So that's something that I for sure can do. And I also think that once you get into those kinds of goals that you're completely in charge of, you know, I want to post on Instagram once a day, then that kind of like naturally increases your sales too as you dive more into the marketing aspect of your shop. So So your bigger revenue goals and your sales goals tend to happen naturally with that effort that you're putting in. So when you're setting goals that are these SMART goals, you want to make sure that the things that you're setting are really specific. So for example, I don't want you to say like, I want to increase my sales, or I want my shop to be successful. Because that's not, I mean, how do you define success? You probably do have some definition of success, but that's what should come out in that goal setting, not the more like general goal. So if what you're saying is, I want my shop to be successful next year, that success looks like making $20,000 over the course of 12 months, or having $1,000 a month in sales, or whatever. But that is the specific goal that you need to set versus the more general things. But before you even set those goals, I want you to sit for a minute, or like 5 minutes maybe, and daydream about what you think could happen with your shop, or what like if I waved a magic wand for you. And I'd love to hear this in the comments if you're watching live, or even if you're watching the replay. I do go through the comments afterwards. And say, if I could wave a magic wand and have my shop just wildly successful for whatever that means for you, this is what it would look like. Would it be quitting your full-time job? Would it be making X, Y, and Z number of dollars? Would it be a number of sales per month? Like, what does that success look like for you? What would be a successful shop for you? And I'd like for you to daydream about that. And you don't have to say how you're going to get there right now. We're not there yet. I just want you to daydream about what that looks like. Sometimes I think we sell ourselves short on goal setting because we get overwhelmed with the steps that we would need to take to get there, to say, I want to have $100,000 in revenue. And then you sit there and you're like, I have no idea how I'm ever going to do that. And so then you plan small because you don't think that you can do it, or you're afraid that you'll fail in that goal. So I just want you to take that time to daydream and say, this is what my dream situation would look like. And for a lot of people, it's leaving your full-time job, being able to have consistent enough sales that you're doing that and that you feel secure in that. So that is really exciting. I've also heard people say a dollar amount, 1,000, 3,000, 4,000, or I recently was working with a girl who had replaced her full-time income. She hadn't quit her full-time job yet, but she had replaced her full-time income for the week with her Etsy shop. So that is a really exciting moment. So once you have those major goals, and I want you to set a really defined numbers goal. So for 2019, no ifs, ands, or buts, 2019, I am going to make X number of dollars in my Etsy shop. And again, it's really hard for me to see the comments, but I would love to have you comment on what your goals are. It's really exciting when you start to think about that, because like, how could that change your life? If you had $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 worth of sales every month, what would that do for you? Would it allow you to go on vacation? Would it allow you to pay your mortgage and not stress about it? Would it allow you to buy groceries and clothes for your kids, or pay for sports and not have to charge it to a credit card? These things, I mean, this is where your life really changes with having this side gig that turns into a successful business, is when you can hit these goals, especially when you're able to get to the point that you're really consistently hitting them, so that you can begin to rely on it a little bit more. You don't just have like one good month, but you know, I'm probably going to have at least this much in sales every month as a baseline. That's a really, really exciting moment. And that's why I like goal setting, is because otherwise I feel like you kind of have this sort of growth of your shop, or like your sales increase, but a lot of times it's kind of slow. It's kind of like losing weight. If you compare it to losing weight, and you like weigh yourself every single day and you lose 1/10 of a pound, and then you're like, oh man, this kind of sucks. That's going so slow and I'm not really seeing any progress. If you never wrote down, or you never paid attention to where you started, you wouldn't know how much you've grown or shrunk, I guess. you wouldn't know how much progress you've actually made. So, and I think it's the same thing with goal setting. Like I actually looked back in my bullet journal recently, and my goal for 2018 was to have 9,000 sales in my Etsy shop. I don't remember I think I started 2018 at like 6,500 or something. And I've ended the year at like over 10,000. But I wouldn't have, if I had been thinking, I thought that I had set that goal at achieving 10,000 sales. And I didn't realize, I guess, how busy my 2018 had been. And so if I would have looked back, I would have said, if I hadn't written it down, I would have said, yeah, I mean, my goal was 10,000 and I think I have like 10,300 or something. So I surpassed it, but not by that much. It was pretty close. But in looking back, I'm like, oh, wow, my goal was actually 9,000 and I have gone way over that. That's awesome. But I don't, like I said, I don't even remember where I started at the end of 2017. So I just think it's important to have that written record of your goal. Otherwise, you just don't really realize how far you've come. So setting that revenue goal, I want you to set that revenue goal. I want you to tell me about it so I can cheer you on and tell you that it's totally possible, and I want to help you get there in any way that I can. So those revenue goals are really important. The next part is that I want to talk about is what you are not going to do. And I think this is equally as important as what you are going to do. So I said in the beginning, I'm looking a little rough today. I just got off the treadmill because I went for a run. So one of my what I'm not going to do for 2019 is I am not going to allow myself to work myself so much that I have no time to take care of myself. So this is what, if you follow Amy Porterfield, I'm a big fan of Amy Porterfield. She calls them non-negotiables. These are your business non-negotiables. So for me, my 2019 business non-negotiable is that my youngest child is 3, almost 3.5. And I love to run. I used to run all the time before I had her. And since I've had her, I just don't make the time to do it anymore. I work and I do kid stuff and I do activities and, life. And I don't make that time. And I just allow the more childcare I've had. This is the first year that she's been in full-time care. So she goes from 8 to 3 while my other kids are in school, and I still don't have the time. I allow my work to fill up all of that time. So my non-negotiable for the year is that I am going to make myself have time to run 30 minutes a day. I'm not like a marathon runner or anything, but 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week. Because I know I feel better doing it. And a lot of times I'll tell myself I really don't have time. Like today, I don't have time to shower. I don't have time to straighten my hair, blah, blah, blah. But I'm still going to prioritize that. So that's my non-negotiable. I'm sorry, my mouth gets so dry. So I want you to set some non-negotiables. Where are your boundaries for your business? So when you say, I want to be successful in 2019, what are you not willing to give up in order to be successful? And I think this is really important. And I know that especially if you're sort of in the early stages of your business or your business has just started to take off, I can remember thinking there's nothing that I won't give up. I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll work until 2 o'clock in the morning. I will get a babysitter and work on Saturdays, or I'll have my husband watch the kids all day so that I can work for 15 hours a day. There's nothing that I won't do. And I think that's I appreciate the hustle mindset. And I have it too. And so I get it. But I think it's really important to have those boundaries in your business to say, it is extremely important to me to be successful in business. And I would never, ever say that it wasn't. But there has to be a boundary that you don't allow your business to take over your entire life. The whole goal of having a successful Etsy shop is to create a job for you that allows flexibility and financial success that you don't get from your 9-to-5 job. And if what you end up with is a job that has no flexibility at all and you're just working all the time, that's not necessarily good or better than just working a 9-to-5 job. So I have sort of gotten to this point with my business this year, and it's a hard thing to talk about because when people say how's your business going or how's work, and you say, oh, it's busy. And they say, oh, that's great. that's a great problem to have. And it is. So I don't want to sound like I'm not grateful for it, because I totally am. Like, the success that I've had with my Etsy shop and the freedom and flexibility that it's given me have been amazing, more than I ever would have dreamed of and more than I ever could have even asked for. But I do think that it's important to have a boundary of what you're not going to give up. And I have not done a good job of that this year. I haven't done a good job of balancing. I missed all 3 of my kids' Thanksgiving dinners that they had at their school, like their family get together, because I was working. And I don't feel good about that. That doesn't feel good to me. It feels like I'm not prioritizing the things that I set out to have by having this job, if that makes sense. Like, I wanted this job so that I could prioritize my children and still bring in a full-time income. And I think that I have not done a good job of balancing it this year. So I'm sorry, I'm like going off on a tangent about myself, and that's like sort of probably way more information than you're interested in hearing about my life. But I guess I just want to say that, you know, I get asked a lot when I'm on podcasts and stuff, like, how do you balance it all? And I think that that's sort of a fallacy of working from home and stuff. It's really, really difficult to balance. And I think that you don't, you know, I think that there have been times that I've not really done a good job of it. And so my goal for this year of 2019, this will be the last year that my youngest one is not in school full time, like real school. And so it is really important to me to prioritize some of those things and to sort of get back to where I started, which was to have that flexibility that I don't feel like I've given myself this year. So all that to say, there's like some vulnerability in there. It's kind of weird for me to even talk about it because I'm not a super vulnerable person normally. But I just want you guys to kind of see the other side of it, that while I agree with like the mindset of like, I'll do whatever it takes, I'm going to succeed at this. This is definitely going to happen for me. And I do feel that way about business. And I do know that that can happen. It's also important to have those non-negotiables of what you're not willing to give up. Another thing, sort of switching gears, one of the ones that I did do a good job with this year, and I'm really proud of myself, is I have a really hard time telling customers, no, I'm not going to do that order. I don't have time, or it's past the deadline. So I set my deadline this year for Christmas orders at December 3rd, which was pretty early. And I have probably gotten at least 30 or 40 emails from people since then saying, if I order this today, can I get it by Christmas? And I have said to every single one of them, no, my deadline has passed for Christmas orders. And this is the first year that I've done that. So I'm a little bit of a workaholic. So it has been good for me to be able to say, I'm drawing this boundary and I'm not going to, like, could I take more orders? Yes, but I don't want to. I'm done. Today is my last day working on orders that are shipping before Christmas, and I'm not going to fit it in just because, you know, some random person decided 11 days before Christmas that they want something that's personalized and monogrammed and totally custom to what they want. I end up being resentful when I fill those orders with customers because I'm like, who waits until 11 days before Christmas? Like, you want something that's totally custom. That's insane. You should be done with your Christmas shopping by now, at least for custom orders. So I end up being like resentful, but really it falls back on me. It's not their problem that I'm agreeing to something that I don't want to do. So it's my responsibility to say no. And so having that boundary next year, my goal is to say I am done after December 1st. I'm taking the whole month of December off. We'll see if I get there. But that's my goal. So when you're goal setting, I also want you to look back at what you did this past year. If you've been in business for a full year or however long you've been in business, what did you do well this year that you want to expand on for next year? And that doesn't necessarily have to be like a product line that you're expanding on. You don't have to say like, I made this necklace that sold really well, so I want to make 20 more necklaces that are different than that one. It could be like, you made this necklace that sold really well. How are you going to market it for the coming year to sell more of them? Or how are you going to find a new supplier of some portion of that necklace so that your profit margins can be higher? How are you going to dig into what you did well last year in order to move that forward for this coming year? And alternatively, what did you not do well last year? I think it's really important to look back on the things that were maybe not as successful as you thought that they would be, and sort of plan out your next year. How are you going to work around that? If you are still planning on carrying those items or having that sale or promotion or whatever, what are you going to do differently that's going to make it more successful for the next year? So the last thing I want to say is in this workbook that I've made up that's in the bit.ly link at the top of it, I attached a calendar that you can print off and fill in for the year. And there's a place on there that sort of has, oh, that was one other one that I wanted to show. So this is my example. This is what I did. And this is how I did mine. So you can kind of see this was December 2018. I already have some of mine going for, that's upside down, January and February. So when you print off the calendar, I'm a really tactile learner. I'm a visual learner. And so it helps me, and not everybody's like this. A lot of people like technology or have like digital calendars and stuff. And I do, like our family calendar is a Google Calendar, but for my business, I find it really helpful to write it down and be able to mark off those dates. So like I know, for instance, this is actually planning for, I'm launching a course in February. So this was my planning for the course. And like I knew one of the things was going to take a whole week. So I could mark off that whole week. I had all the steps that I needed to do to move forward in creating that course. I listed out all the steps I was going to do, and then I assigned them places in the calendar. So I know by December 15th, I need to have everything uploaded. I am not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. So I think it's really helpful to have that printable calendar. So there is one in that workbook, and then it also breaks it down into a monthly calendar where you can say, this is my big goal for the month, and these are the tasks that I need to do to get there. So if you say my big goal for the month is to grow my Instagram following by 100 people, here's what I need to do every single day. I need to have a post. I need to spend 5 minutes liking other people's stuff. I need to comment on 10 people's posts, whatever. Or, I want to create 10 more listings or whatever. And so I think that's really helpful. And I also think that with the printable calendar, it's really helpful so that you can look at a whole year and look at promotions. So, and also just planning your holidays. If you don't have holiday stuff, I would recommend that you find a way to have some sort of seasonal merchandise. But the thing is, like, the retail schedule of holidays and seasons is so screwy. So for example, I have a product that sells really well for Easter. So I will start really heavily promoting that Easter item in February, even though Easter's not until April. And so I think it's really helpful with the printable calendar to be able to look at when those dates are, when is graduation, when is Easter, when is Mother's Day, when is Father's Day, Valentine's Day, all of those things. And to back yourself up so that you could say, I need to be able to ship all of my Valentine's Day orders by February 5th. So if I need to be able to ship them by then, I need to stop taking orders by January 31st, which means I need to start promoting it January 1st. So that's how I use the printable calendar, and I find it to be really, really helpful in order to just be able to be more prepared. Otherwise, you get to January 20th and you're like, oh, I have Valentine's Day stuff. Here you go, guys. Does anybody want any Valentine's Day stuff? And it ends up not being as successful as you wanted it to be. So that is what I would recommend that you do with the printable calendar. And then the month by month one is just helpful, I think, in setting smaller goals that you can achieve through, like, to set a month by month goal that doesn't necessarily have to do with the bigger revenue goal or the bigger goal that you have set out for your shop for the year. So that is all I have for 2019 planning. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you guys will share some of your goals that you have. I love to hear them because I love to daydream about what people are doing and where they want to see their shop go in the next year. I think it's really exciting. And I also think, like I said in the beginning, that if you set that goal, it is like the first step forward in actually achieving it. So you say, I want to have 4,000 goals or $4,000 in sales per month. And I think that that is the first step to actually getting there, and you totally can get there. It makes it so much more achievable and like tangible when you write down that goal. So I hope this has been helpful for you all. And don't forget to download that workbook. It's like 11 pages, and I think it will be really helpful. So I would love to have you have that printed out and everything. So I will see you soon. I think I probably won't do a Facebook Live again next week because it is really crazy as we get into Christmas, but I will definitely do one towards the end of 2018, towards the end of December. So I will see you all soon. And if I don't do another Facebook Live before Christmas, I hope that you all have a Merry Christmas. Bye.